I've just realised I haven't posted a video, fishing video, in a long time. Since last season really, since 2020. Mainly because we've been in a shitty lockdown for such a long time, and when the lockdown ended in, must have been in late May, I had a couple of fishing trips, but I was so fishing frustrated I just fished and never thought of even taking my GoPro out. So yes, I never, and then after that, we had this shitty drought where we had this 3 weeks of feckin' sunny weather and 25 degrees, which everyone was so delighted with, but all our rivers went to their bones and the fish were getting boiled alive, so then there was no more fishing. I did have two good fishing trips back end of May and middle of June. I had a nice springer for a couple of days fishing in the end of May, and then I had 4 or 5 days here in the west where I had 13 salmon for 4 or 5 days fishing, which was really cool. Yeah, so, and then obviously we got into drought and things happened. So, but this drought has finally broken. I've been watching the OPW waterlevel.ie staff gauges all around the west for the last number of days, and there's a unanimous flood in the west. Everywhere's seen big water. There's been 2 or 3 days of heavy rain and thunderstorms, which is exactly what we wanted to see. So I have bolted over to the west for a couple of days, which, if you can't tell, I'm super excited about. I'm hitting the River Erith today, which is basically your typical spate river. Really flashy, reacts to rain really fast, gets very big and flooded, and then drops really fast as well. You know, it really is your typical spate river. So it is now up at about 1.7. I think it's dropping, although there is a bit of rain around, so it's hard to tell, but it's running clear. But 1.7 is big water, which I like, because it means that, you know, your opportunity for covering fish is much greater, because, you know, a lot of the time in bigger water the fish are more spread out and stuff. So I'm excited about that. Looking at the river as I drove down, it's going to be a two-handed situation today, because it's, you know, it's quite wide down here where I'm fishing on beat 6. Reports are loads of fish caught yesterday. I know the run this year has been generally good, although then the water levels dropped off, so it was hard to tell, but early runs were good, and there's been a lot of fish caught. So yeah, so I'm really excited to get out on the river and cast a line. So check back in with you in a moment, and we'll hopefully be catching some salmon. So as I said, I'm using my double-handed rod, spey rod. Spey casting, a bit of practice, but also you can probably hear on the microphone the wind that's pushing up here is pretty vile. Not as bad as I've seen it. I've seen worse, but getting the line across the downstream can be hard. I've got a very short, slow sinking tip on, just to stop my fly unintentionally skating in some of the slower pools. I should say, sorry, some of the faster pools, any of the pools. But it is really beautiful water on this river, and this kind of water, there's fresh fish pushing in, and there's resident fish that ran earlier in the year. You could really meet a fish anywhere in this kind of water, because the fish are going to be pushing through. And oh, there's that wind. It's just throwing my line upstream into that tree, which is not good. Oh, it's come out good. As I said, I've got a kind of a posh-tosh effort on. double, about in a size 10. That's 10 double. And as I said, a sinking tip, short sinking tip. And you can see there, this is an 8-weight rod. And that wind really is kicking the line back up at me, so you know, a single-handed rod or even my lighter switch rod would be painfully difficult trying to pump this line out there. This river, it really epitomizes for me, a spate river. You know, it's the epitome of a spate river. It's just surrounded by all these bowl-like mountains, and they catch a lot of water in a short space of time, drain it very quickly. And it's so fast to react, this river, to rainfall. You know, it flashes up but then drops again as quick as it flashes up sometimes. And that's the thing about this kind of fishing. It's that the dynamics and flow and the fluctuations in water level that really trigger the salmon to be active and take a fly. It can be very hard in some of the more lowland rivers where you have very stable flows to actually entice fish to take after they're in for a few weeks, because they'll, you know, if they have good water temperature and good depth and good flow, they'll hunker down into a lie and they won't really react until there's a big flood or later in the year when it gets closer spawning time. But the fish in this river have been waiting now for 3 or 4 weeks for this rain to be able to move throughout the catchment, and they'll be as aware as anyone as how quickly the levels will fall, and they'll be trying to get moving when they can. It makes them very active and agitated, and that's really what makes them take a fly. And you can see all around here, just mountain ranges all around, like big bowls. They catch a huge amount of rainfall and it drains then very quickly into this river and creates a big flood, but because they're so steep, the valleys, that it runs off as quick as it runs up. But this for me is probably perfect time for this river. It's about 1.6 on the gauge. It nearly got up to 2 at the height of this spate. It's dropping off nicely now, so there's that wind. Here has seen better days. Looks like a fish died somewhere upstream and has been washed out onto the bank here in the flood yesterday. Probably maybe died from stress during the drought last week. Oh, easy boy. Finally met a fish. Really hammered it. Doesn't look particularly fresh fish, but a decent sized fish all the same. Just wondering where I might land him, because this bank is not ideal for the length of my net. Didn't think of that before I hooked him. Really confident take. Changed over from the posh tosh. Tried a couple of things, but I put on a black shrimp in about a size 12. He's not particularly fresh, I don't think. Colour on him, but good strong fish. Switched on by this nice bit of rain we've had. Fish. God, very powerful. This is quite a big, powerful rod.
quite a small pelic net. Nice little ledge here, which looks like it might do the trick. Actually, not as coloured as I originally thought. Beauty. And the fly just came out in the net, so that's lucky. Popped out. Let's see what weight he is before I release him. Oh, if he'd stay still for 2 seconds. He is just over 5, nearly 5.5. That's a really good size growth for here. Luckily the fly came out in the net. That's a good start to my day. Ooh, still full of go, which is great. Number 2, I hope. Just a very solid take. Haven't seen the fish. Line just tightened and head went down. So I imagine it's another grouse. Grouse this here seems to be a really good sized fish. Hasn't put its head up or made any fuss yet. Oh, maybe it looks a better fish actually. Definitely could be a better fish. Hasn't even woken up yet, I don't think. Really good solid take just under the surface, just sucked the fly in as it glided by under the surface and hooked itself really. Classic salmon take when the line just tightened, and feels definitely a better fish. Ah, you'll never know. Quite as good a fish this time, but very welcome nonetheless. Walk backwards, keep some contact, get this slack line in because he's running at me. Oh shit. Bit of head shaking going on. There's a little spot here, if you oblige, would be ideal. Pop him out. Ranch fish, which is unusual up here, so he'll get the chop. There's no adipose fin on him, which means he's a rancher. You hear? So yeah, he was thankfully pretty well hooked because that was pantomime. Very feisty little grills. It's amazing what this cooler air and rain does. Oxygenate the water and they get so full of energy, these fish. running hard in the flood and making up ground. A little wild fish. Three and 3/4 pounds. So another day. Yesterday was a pretty good day salmon fishing by any standards. Had 3 fish in the net, lost a couple more and had a couple of handshakes, but I can't help feel that I could have got a few more fish on the earth if I'd done things differently. But anyway, I've come to a very different river today. Another typical west of Ireland spate river, but very different to the Arif. A smaller system and a much steeper gradient throughout the catchment. It's fed by lakes, so good water levels. It's really still roaring, so there's obviously more rain last night, and that's given it a good push of water. So I'm going to have to find some places where there's not such a big flow like there is here. See if I can find a salmon. So anyway, let's go. This is some of my favourite type of fishing, although the water's pretty high here, so I'd like it a little bit lower, but it really is almost akin to dry fly fishing for trout, particularly when the water's lower and it's clear and you can actually sight fish for salmon. The presentation is probably the most important thing in a river like this. Just don't get too close. Obviously on a day like today, there's a bit of protection from the water conditions, but in lower water, you know, making sure the fish don't see you and being able to present the fly to them without spooking them is the most important thing. And they often lie in tricky places, like right there underneath those branches. The accuracy of where you cast is really, really important. Just as I was taking the line in, this greedy little sea trout hammered the fly. Not what I'm looking for, but I'll take it as a start. Doesn't look too damaged from the lice. Well, pretty sure this is a sea trout, but not what I'm looking for. I won't complain. Nice sea trout he is too.